As we know, gambling addiction has a lot of symptoms. One of the symptoms I have found in my experience that seems to last the longest after we get onto the path of recovery is an abnormal relationship with money. We have a skewed vision of the value of money, and we try to regain a normal, common sense approach to the way we handle our money and with the way we handle our finances. However, of all the relationships we have to repair after coming clean and addressing our gambling addiction, our relationship with money seems to be, in my experience, almost irreparably damaged. It's one of the few symptoms I can say to this date that I still struggle with on an almost daily basis. What I want to talk about in this video today is how I've been through many stages of relationships with money, from the deepest, darkest points of my addiction up until today, where I still do struggle to act around money, behave money and treat money in the same way that I would suspect a normal, non-gambling addicted person would do. Firstly, as always, just want to say hi, hope you're keeping safe, hope you're keeping sane. Thank you very, very much for clicking on this video. If you like the videos, then like, subscribe, share, comment, do all that great YouTubery stuff. There is a link to my Patreon down below in the comments, and if you want to support me in that way, I'll talk more about that at the end of this video. It's safe to say that once we're in the midst, or dare I say in the grip of a gambling addiction, we have an inability to treat money in a normal way, in the way that 97.3, another arbitrary percentage from Phil, percent of people would deal with money. We don't have the ability to spend money in a normal fashion. We would quite happily forego spending sort of £60-70 on a new pair of trainers when we're wandering around the shops in town, because that seems a little bit too much. It seems very, very hard to justify to ourselves, particularly as we're probably perpetually short of money in the first place. However, on that same excursion to town, we're quite happy to pop into the bookies to have a casual 20 on the fob tee, which would then result in the loss of hundreds and hundreds of pounds, which could have bought the trainers we deemed to be too expensive multiple times over. And this same skewed relationship with money is apparent in many, many facets of a gambling addict's life. Not wanting to socialise because we can't afford it, but then that time where we could have been out with our friends socialising, going for dinner or whatever it might be, we may well end up sitting at home betting on football we have no interest in watching, or going on the online casinos and losing far more than we could have spent on a far more enjoyable and far more sociable night out. This is one of the things that eventually comes to become too much. We start losing our social life. We start losing our ability to spend money normally. So we end up basically depriving ourselves of either luxuries or, in some cases, essentials, because we simply can't bring ourselves to spend the money on those things. We'll find ourselves in supermarket looking out for special offers because we don't want to spend 30p extra for that brand that we really, really like. We'd rather spend 30-40p less on an equivalent own brand item that maybe we're not so keen on, because we want to save money, because we are perpetually short of money. However, when it comes to a gambling session where we're in that gambling zone and the gambling demon has taken hold, those very small savings basically amount to nothing, because they are lost on a single spin of roulette or a single spin of a fruit machine or a single bet, whatever it is, all those savings we've made. When I first started to quit gambling, I realised that this sense of, well, this inability to spend money on normal, regular, everyday things didn't go away immediately. I still found myself hoarding money, and I think a lot of this may have come from the fact that I had taken stock of my finances, realised the financial damage I'd done throughout many, many years of gambling, and had this number in the back of my head that I felt I needed to pay off, that I needed to clear as soon as possible. So I became, if anything, even more reluctant to spend money on normal everyday things. Cash to me still remained gambling tokens, and that's one of the things we have in the midst of a gambling addiction. Money is not seen in the same way that regular people see money. Money is seen purely as a way of feeding our habits. This is why when you get towards the end of a month, and this is something I experienced time and time again during my period of gambling, when you get towards the end of the month and your bank balance starts to get not necessarily very, very low, but below a level that you feel comfortable at, you start to panic. Now, you don't start to panic because you don't think you're going to be able to feed yourself, or because there's bills to be paid, or you're not going to be able to put petrol in the car to go to work, although that does often happen as a result of addiction. We start to panic because we see our gambling tokens dwindling, and we feel that if we don't have sufficient funds available to have a session of gambling, or dare I say, chase the losses that we are inevitably going to have from a session of gambling, then we start to get that uneasy feeling. Not because we're running short of money for essentials, but because we're running out of gambling tokens. We're running out of the means by which we can buy a fix for our addiction, to buy that hit of gambling that we require to satiate the addiction. It's incredibly hard to quit gambling, or at least that's the general consensus. However, it's incredibly easy for a gambler to forego gambling when they don't have any money. That's a bit of an aside, but it is an interesting observation. So this is something I still feel to this day. Even to this day, if my bank balance is lower than I would like, below a certain arbitrary level that for some reason the little gambling bit of my brain at the back of my head still sets this arbitrary level, once I fall below that level, I start to get an uneasy feeling. Whereas any other person would look at that and go, well, actually, no, Phil, you've got plenty of money for the rest of the month, you know. You've paid all your bills, you've got a food cupboard full of food, there's petrol in the car, the only expenses you've got really, and, you know, little minor things or socialising or whatever, and you've got plenty of money for that. But no, the little gambling demon in the back of my head would still go, Phil, you haven't got enough money to chase your losses here, mate. What if you get involved in a fruit machine, you have to go £300 deep into it? What if you have an ACCA that doesn't come in and you need to chase it? You haven't got the money to do that. If the gambling urges arise, have you got the money to satiate that addiction? And I don't have any intention of gambling. I don't have any plan to gamble. I don't really think I've got any facilities for gambling, even if I wanted to, but that's kind of by the by. The point is that there is still that insecurity around money. There is still that inability, even now, even if it was, okay, say hypothetically there was 4 days left of the month and there was a t-shirt on sale that I wanted to buy for 20 quid, right? Just hypothetically. Even if I had a few £100 in the bank with a few days to go to payday, I would still be very, very cautious about going out and spending a small portion of that on something for me, on a luxury, shall we say, expenditure, because my brain wants to keep a certain float just in case the gambling urges rise, and I need to satiate them with gambling tokens, not with money, but with what we have earmarked as gambling tokens. It's the reason as gamblers we can't win, because if we do win, then the money we won are gambling winnings. So they're not cash. It's not money in the bank. It's not money in your hand. It's not readies. It's not a number on your bank balance sheet. It's literally more gambling tokens to help you extend and to perpetuate the addiction. And like I say, I still struggle with that today. The other thing I want to talk about with regards to relationships with money is how we obtain money. During my gambling addiction, I felt that I could somehow earn my way out of this addiction. And I spoke about that in a recent video, so I won't go over too much ground. But in the same way, you can't out-train a bad diet, you cannot out-earn, you cannot outwork a gambling addiction. It simply does not work. But it wasn't just the fact that I wanted to earn more. It was the lengths at which my brain would go to think about ways in which I could obtain more money. And a lot of these times, they were deceptive ways. Anecdotally, during this period, I found myself watching TV programs such as The Real Hustle or the Rogue Traders element of Watchdog, basically things about people who make money in unscrupulous and often illegal ways. And I was actually mentally jotting down things, going, oh yeah, you know what, that's actually a good idea, I could get some extra cash doing that. I even, and no pride here at all, but I'm being open and honest and candid about this, I even at one point looked up setting up a premium rate phone line on the premise that I could somehow entice people to call this line, maybe sort of older, more vulnerable people, maybe like a tech support line for something I was selling online, in order to raise more funds in a, possibly legal, but certainly immoral and illegitimate way. And like I say, there's no pride in that at all, but it's amazing when you need that money coming in to satiate an addiction, the lengths your brain will go to and think, what you'd normally dismiss and what actually is, presented to us as immoral and something done by bad people, the gambling element of our brain actually makes notes on this and goes, well, that's a good idea. I can nick a few quid doing that. I'm still in a position now where I like to try and obtain money. I like side hustles, I like buying and selling, I like setting up little businesses, I like working hard, partially because it distracts me from addictions and it is a positive in my life rather than a negative, but also because I do like financial attainment. I do use, to some extent, sort of financial reward as a measure of my progress, as a measure of my success. But now my brain wants to do it legitimately. It takes pride in doing something that may be constructive, or at the very least isn't destructive and isn't exploitative for the sake of feeding an addiction. So let me know your thoughts. Let me know your experience of, financial approach, either during or after or a long way down the road of gambling addiction. Because, like I say, many of the symptoms of gambling addiction for me, thankfully, have subsided. Even the urges now are very, very minimal. However, my ability to treat money like a normal person, my ability to view it in a sensible, rational way is still very, very skewed. And I'm not sure, if I'm honest, it's something I'll ever get back. It might be something I have to live with for the rest of my life. But compared to my other relationships that I've lost, compared to other symptoms of gambling addiction, I think I can deal with this one. It just takes a bit of a reality check every now and then to look myself in the mirror and go, actually, Phil, you know what? You can afford that 20 quid t-shirt in the sale. It might replace this faded Vans one that I've bought 20 years ago in Newquay. Stay safe, stay sane. Like I said, there's a Patreon link in the description below. Thank you to anyone who chooses to support me that way. It really does help. It's going to help me buy Photoshop and Adobe Premiere Pro so I can start editing the videos better, creating new thumbnails, hopefully reaching more people, helping more people. So if you want to support me, there's a link in the description below where you'll find a few bits of additional content, some discussion. I'll reply to your DMs. So there is a little bit of something back if you choose to support me in that way. But if you don't, that's absolutely cool. Just watch the videos, like, subscribe, comment, and do all that great stuff. If I don't speak to you before, have a great week. I'm going away, so I don't know when this video is going to go up, but yeah, I will respond to your comments and your DMs on Patreon when I get back. Stay safe, stay sane, and speak to you all soon, guys. Thanks very much.